All right, we are live at the Democratic National Convention. We have a very interesting interview for you guys today. Jess McIntosh, she is a spokesperson for the Hillary Clinton campaign, and so this ought to be fun.
Yeah.
Jess, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
Okay, so first off, let's start out nice and easy. What do you think of the convention so far?
I think it's great. It's really exciting to see how raucous and passionate our side is, and I think there couldn't possibly be a better contrast than what we saw last week, which really solidified the stakes for everybody. That was terrifying. What was coming off of the stage was terrifying. What was happening in the arena was terrifying. The way it looked on TV, that's just not the America that I want to belong to, and certainly not the one I want our future to be. So to see this and we're a little contentious. We don't agree on everything, but we all want what's best, and
right.
I think that matters so much.
You know, somebody wrote I know who it was Zaid Jilani at The Intercept, wrote a really interesting piece that I read a day ago, where he said, what's wrong with not having unity? And he wondered whether the Sanders camp should have filed more minority reports, which would have allowed more debating on the floor, which would have, and so it's counterintuitive to what most conventional wisdom is. But his point was, well, that lets people vent their frustrations and have a real policy debate, which is what I think the Sanders people want to have.
Right.
And then that might have actually lowered the volume and the booing. What's your take on that?
I think we saw a lot of that in the platform fight coming up. I know the meetings in St. Louis and Orlando didn't get the same kind of attention as this one is getting, but we saw a real policy debate, and because we had it, we have the most progressive platform that the Democratic Party has ever put forward, which, given my politics, is only a positive. I agree, but I do think it's important in a campaign to take that step where you turn and remember that there's a Republican Party. And I would love it if the only debate was happening between debt-free college and tuition-free college. That would be A-okay with me. But at some point, we have to unify, at least in our desire to make sure that progressive values take the White House and take back the Senate.
So, of course I get that. I mean, that's not only logical, but it's your objective. That's so you work for the Hillary Clinton campaign. You want as many people to vote for her as possible.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right. So, but at the same time, I sometimes feel like we're overly obsessed, especially the media, but also the parties, overly obsessed with unity at this very moment. This is a convention. If all you have is forced unity, then it just is a marketing exercise. And I know marketing's important.
It is.
But I feel that the cause of getting more people to vote for your candidate might be better served if the unity wasn't so, in the perception of Sanders supporters, so heavy-handed.
Sure. I think that the purpose of the convention is hopefully so that the unity is not forced. A convention, if it works the way it's supposed to, looks different coming out than it does going in. This is the moment where you hear from the people who you love in your movement and in your party, and the reasons why they are supporting their nominee. Elizabeth Warren didn't give a substance-free speech last night, and Bernie Sanders didn't give a substance-free speech. No one's saying, get on board because it's time and we hate Trump. They were focusing on the fact that we agree on 95% of the platform. And those are the reasons why it's important that we all,
But Jess, let me challenge you on
Sure.
that, because that part I'm not sure I agree with. I actually believe...
You think there's more than 95?
Oh, yeah, I think there's a core problem. But at the same time, I think it's okay to say Trump is worse. I'll probably vote for Hillary Clinton
is worse
because Trump is worse.
Is like the biggest oversimplification ever. Trump is a racist, misogynistic xenophobe who would take our country back to before 1950. Yes, he's worse.
So fair enough, and I agree with all of that.
Right.
So now let's get to the interesting part, which is the core issue. So I think the core conflict here is the Sanders supporters really don't want the party beholden to donor money.
Yeah.
And the Clinton campaign doesn't agree because they're about to take $1 billion of donor money.
And this is where I would challenge you. I think that these are the rules that we have, and we want to win. We want to beat the Republicans. We want to have a Democrat in the White House, which means raising the money that we need to get our message out and turn out voters in time for November. That said, the very first thing that she pledged to do, and she has only made one within 30 days pledge, and that's to overturn Citizens United.
Yeah.
So to say that she doesn't want to end the beholden to large donors in politics just isn't the case. The fact that we are winning the way that we are winning doesn't mean that she didn't make that pledge at Netroots Nation, I would argue.
I know. And I want to welcome that because it's a really positive step.
I think so.
But at the same time, I know what a lot of people are thinking, and honestly, to some degree, what I'm thinking, which is, yes, but what will she do to push it? Because it's actually very easy to say, I'm for an amendment. And to propose one, the president doesn't really have any authority with an amendment. Like, for example, Chuck Schumer loves taking corporate money. He loves it. You'll never talk me out of it because I know it's the facts. He's also theoretically for an amendment. So that's why educated Sanders supporters will go, yeah, it's easy to say, but what is she going to do about it? So, now...
Sure.
Now, I get what you're saying, Jess, and I'm not naive about that. I actually never got on Obama for taking the corporate money when he was running. What I got really upset with Obama on is not doing anything once he got to be president. So before Sanders, I thought it was impossible to not run to do unilateral disarmament. Right now, I don't think it's impossible anymore. But so, for example, one thing that Hillary Clinton could do is say, let me give you 3 different possibilities, actually. One is she goes, you know what? I'm not taking the money. I'm going to do it Bernie Sanders style. I'm going to take it $27 at a time. Now, I know that that's a foreign concept, and like, if you propose that in an internal meeting, they might throw you out. Okay, but hear me out for a second.
Right.
It did work for Sanders. He did raise more money than even Hillary Clinton during the primaries. And that is so real that the Sanders supporters, I guarantee you, would go, whoa, okay. That's real.
Okay, but here's the thing. He did that in the primary. He didn't do it in the general. He didn't do it when the Koch-backed money is coming in against him. I mean, no negative...
It actually might not come in. The Koch brothers seem to really dislike Donald Trump.
No, that's true. But I think when they get in, they're unifying the same way we are, and we should all be cognizant of that.
Look, it's a small point because it's not important. There'll be plenty of money on the other side.
So the idea, I mean, Bernie Sanders did as well as he did, and what he did should be celebrated because it's changed Democratic politics for the better, full stop. But he did it without a single negative ad being run against him. That is a very, very different scenario.
Well, look, again, we would
general election. It just is.
Jess, that's where we would get into a disagreement that I don't want to spend too much time on, because I actually think you guys did a masterful job of spinning the media against them, so you didn't have to run negative ads.
Oh, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean, Republicans were running positive ads for Bernie Sanders.
I know, but you guys did plenty of damage. Okay, and you guys were running against each other. I get it.
Sure.
I get it. Okay, and so now I know it's a bridge too far, so we can move on.
Okay.
But
it is an ideal that we share.
Yeah,
and I think that's important.
And by the way, I'm positive that if Hillary Clinton did do that, she would raise an enormous amount of money, and she would win. Because it would send a message to the independent voters. Oh my God, she means it. And so I think that would be enormously powerful. But let's get beyond it because it's a bridge too far.
Sure.
Okay. What if she said, I pledge to you that the next campaign I run will be with no corporate lobbyist or donor money? Because then you have all the time in the world. You got 4 years if you win to prepare. You got 4 years to push an amendment and make sure that it gets enacted so you have an even playing field. Now, that would be real. She'd have to actually mean it, and it would be a gross violation of that pledge if she didn't. So that would go a long way towards convincing people. Would she be willing to consider something like that?
I think that would be incredibly premature. I mean, she would be fighting the Republican Party to do this. So I think that saying, I am going to put a constitutional amendment. I mean, she went into Netroots Nation. She went into the place with the people who are most guaranteed to hold her accountable and said, within 30 days, I'm going to do this. That's the beginning of that process.
But you know that you could do it within 30 seconds. the president just proposes it. What's the big deal?
It's the only 30-day commitment that she's made. I think that matters.
And she did the Netroots thing on video, so it's not like she was going to get a bad reaction. And you guys know that. And I get it. You're the communications
like they're
team.
not willing to boo a video at Netroots. She got a really positive reaction because it was a really positive thing.
Stage, you don't want, and you want to stage manage it. I get it. It's your job. It's not. I get it. It's fine. But at the same time, it's not like, wow, she stepped into the building. She didn't. She did a video. And again, I don't want to poo-poo it. I love that she's going to propose the amendment.
I don't think that you would be giving her the benefit of the doubt if she had stepped into the building. I understand that it would be that you want her to go farther than she's willing to go. Mm-hmm. But she's going down the path that we agree needs to be gone down. And that is what matters when you compare to what the other side is doing.
Okay, so let's just finish that thought. And we'll come close to wrapping it up that way. So when you say that's premature to pledge that the next time she runs, that she's going to do it without the corporate money, the lobbyists, the donor money, do you get, and when I say you, I mean the team, and I know you don't speak for everybody, but does the Clinton campaign get that a lot of people out there go, you see that? No, they're going to take the corporate money forever. They're wedded to the corporate money, they're wedded to the donor money, and if you get paid millions of dollars for something, they're going to want something in return. These are rational thoughts that people are having.
I know that there are people out there that believe that. I would urge them to look at the agenda. I would urge them to hold people accountable for what they propose. I think that we all underestimated the backlash that Obama was going to face when he took office. I think there was this idea that he had a mandate, he had so many people behind him, everyone wanted his agenda, and they fought him so hard. And I would never want to take away a tool to be able to fight back. So I think that we should listen to the fact that she is running as one of the most, when she gets nominated, this is one of the most progressive nominees we've ever had. And we should take a moment to celebrate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I hear you. That's why we had you on to have this conversation. And look, I've been saying that because every person that interviews me asks me, both sides, why aren't you unified? Right? And I think it's okay to say, look, there are things I disagree with Hillary Clinton on, including a core issue. But that doesn't mean I'm going to vote against her.
Right.
And then the other side yells at me and says, the lesser of two evils is evil. You would argue not remotely the case.
I would.
Right. She's not at all evil.
But I also wouldn't argue that this conversation is bad. Right. I really wouldn't.
Right. And my argument is, I do agree with Hillary Clinton on a number of things. Now she's for $15 minimum wage, free college education, and even before she made the compromise to Bernie Sanders, we agreed on a number of things.
Yes.
And I liked her gun control position better than Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely.
Throughout.
And she's done more. She's the first presidential candidate to talk about repealing the Hyde Amendment. That is a huge progressive, that means a lot to me as a woman. It means a lot to women of color. It means a lot to low-income women, and that's never happened before on the presidential stage. So in some cases, she's gone farther on different issues than Bernie has, and I think that their conversation has brought them both to a better place, and the party too.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you can say this, but I can say it. You don't have to love Hillary Clinton, and you don't have to think, as Jess does, that she's the most progressive candidate we've ever had. And you could even disagree on a core issue and still think league's better than the other guy.
Yes, I do agree with that.
That is how it works. You get into a voting booth and you got to vote for one of them.
It's true.
Yeah. All right. You know what? So since that was me just speaking at the end, let me end on a question. There are people who say, wait a minute now, though, when I get in that voting booth, there will be other options.
Right.
So if I'm a super progressive, I got Jill Stein in almost every state on the ballot, and I think you'll concede she's more liberal than Hillary Clinton.
I think she actually tweeted something really interesting the other day, where she tweeted a scorecard where she was measuring up her agenda with other candidates' agenda, and she was trying to get Bernie Sanders supporters to come over to her by saying, look, I agree with him on 99% of the issues, which I'm sure is accurate. Her Hillary Clinton scorecard was 91%. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to make a confession here. I voted for Ralph Nader in 2000, the very first presidential general election. I was in New York, wasn't a swing state, but I have spent many years atoning. but I did that, and I understand the reasons for doing that. Man, do I wish I hadn't done that. I don't think that I understood that was a zero-sum choice. With the political party system that we have, you are voting for a Democrat, and if you don't vote for the Democrat, you are ostensibly handing a vote to the Republican. So since Jill Stein is in agreement with Hillary Clinton, who is the only person who can stop Donald Trump on 91% of her agenda, that just doesn't seem like much of a question to me.
Okay, so you're saying if you know going in the day of the election that Jill Stein is polling around what she is now, 4 or 5%,
Sure.
she's not going to win, you might as well vote for Hillary Clinton just to make sure that the Republican doesn't win. How about the last scenario, where it turns out Gary Johnson has done some serious damage, Jill Stein has gained some momentum, and she has a chance of winning a swing state? Then what happens?
I don't see Jill Stein winning a congressional district. I just don't see that as a viable standard right now. If we were not in a two-party system, then I think she would probably be a pretty good candidate, but right now, we have a choice. The choice is clear, and it is Hillary Clinton or it is Donald Trump, so everybody really needs to vote.
All right, Jess McIntosh, spokesperson for the Clinton campaign. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.